Welcome to the Junto Men's Podcast, where we take a deep dive into all things relating to men. We explore how to go from good to great, from high performers, and also aim to provide a shining light if you're experiencing darkness in your life. Grab a pen and paper and enjoy the ride. Pictures and that sort of thing. Anyway, that's a long story. But yeah, like I said, Chanel's worked in, you've seen the, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you've seen the worst of the worst when it comes to through work with docs and child protection and stuff like that. And you've had a journey with that. And now you're essentially a mediator for, you should fucking do your own intro, but
I could.
you could. I'll let you do it. But I guess I just wanted to quickly go around the table. Obviously, you guys are here for a reason. You don't just show up for no reason. So just give a quick little intro, like, you've got kids, or just give like little 20 seconds who you are.
Can I add to that? Yeah. Can you do your name?
Yeah.
How many children you have and ages?
Look at you.
And one word that you think of when you think about parenting.
I should just not talk. What you do?
Start with you. Switch the brain on. Out of Bali time.
All right, so I'm Mitch. I've got Harry and Poppy. Harry's 9, Poppy's 4, soon to be 10 and 5 for next month or so. What was the other thing?
Just a word that relates to parenting.
Challenging.
Nice. I need a pen.
Name's Jason. So 2 of mine, Grace and Xavier. Grace is coming up for 7. Xavier's coming up for 3. One word would be frustrating.
Like it, yes.
Joel, I've got 2 kids, 9 and 7, Harriet and Zachary. I have no idea what the topic was tonight. I just turn up. I don't look at Facebook. Great. It's a good topic. I'm happy. And I would say sponges.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Gavin, we've got 2, Lena, who's 7 turning 8, and Harry's turning 6 this month. Rewarding.
Okay.
I've got twins, Henry and Harper. They're both 9. One is a boy and one is definitely a girl. And I'll describe them in one word as satisfying.
Nice. Thank you.
Phil, I've got 2 boys, Lucas 18 and Nicholas 12, and newly single parent. Someone took my good word, challenging, trying to be both male and female.
Tom, 2 kids, 2 girls, 3.5 and 7 months. And parenting, I would say, is just a journey. Like, I feel like you're always stepping forward onto the next thing, and you're never really reaching some sort of finish line or anything like that. It's just a constant journey. Yeah.
Could you accept that now?
Yeah.
About you?
My name's Michael. Michael. Willow will be 4 in June. Kara's just turned just over 18 months. And one word is to describe parenting.
Or just if you associate a word with parenting.
So,
Eye-opening.
Yeah, okay.
Eye-opening, I guess. One of the words that just relentless. I think is a good word. Is relentless.
There's a couple of really positive words there.
Yeah, I was aiming for something a bit more positive.
I've got some negative ones.
Which is perfectly fine, because it's like all of those things and much, much more, right?
It's not negative, though. It's just an observation.
Yeah.
It's just challenging.
Yeah. From day one.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me. This is my second time coming to the Junto to talk to you guys, or not, maybe some of you before. So I know Mike through the gym, so I've been at the gym for quite a while. and love this little community. So anything I can do to kind of have some input and share a bit of hopefully wisdom, I'm all for it. So you're the guinea pigs tonight. I actually do a fair bit of this, kind of getting around and talking to people, but I don't really like to talk much at you. I'm going to raise a whole lot of kind of stuff tonight, but I want it to be kind of rich with a little bit of interaction and sharing about what your experiences are. Because I think in my life, from being a parent, and I'm a mum of two girls, I can tell you what happens down the other end.
Oh,
And I
wait.
tell you,
21 and 18.
21 and 18. And so, yeah, I love it. But I haven't always loved it. At times it's been really, really difficult. But I thought tonight I could sort of share some of the things that I think are really important and layer that with some of the experiences I've had. So I'm really open for questions and comments, and let's just take an opportunity to interrogate some of the information we'll be talking about. So you walk away knowing a little bit more than when you walked through the door. That's all you've got to do. And that's parenting 101, you know, something is always going to be around the corner for you. So it's to kind of just be aware. So I have had quite a history involving children. So I worked in child protection for 24 years. So I was involved in investigations and prosecutions of cases of child abuse. So, you know, quite high profile, you know, on the TV, in the news, before the courts, some murders, but lots and lots of interventions with families. So you got to see quite an array of family circumstances, from quite disadvantaged to the other end of the spectrum. So I ended up finishing up in docs with a whole lot of knowledge and a whole lot of PTSD. So so for the last sort of 6 years, I haven't been working in docs. So I'm a social scientist from uni, and I retrained about 6 years ago to go into mediation. So, and that is that's been really great for me, because I've got all these skills around working in with families and negotiating and influencing change. But now I do it in the private sector, and I get the ability to not panic at 5 o'clock if a kid's unsafe and I have to kind of make a decision about removing that child from an unsafe situation. I get to say to parents, well, here it is, and it's over to you. So you either take it on board or roll the dice and kind of, you know, see how you go. So I love having the responsibility to influence, but I love also not taking the responsibility home with me and having to manage that. So that's been really good for me personally. So in my time, I have interviewed many children, from just who are verbal, you know, right up to, well, in my business, I still talk to young adults who are 21 if they want to talk to me about their family situation. So I've had a lot of experience engaging with kids, and I like to think it's a little bit of secret kids business. They tell me stuff that they wouldn't necessarily tell their parents, or it's hard for them to tell their parents. So I feel like I've been in a privileged position. Yes, a lot of that has been around what their experiences of abuse has been, which has been difficult for them to talk about. But more recently with mediation, I've moved into child consultant work. So this is where I do a lot of meeting with children of parents who are separated, or families who are separated, and there's high levels of conflict between mum and dad about who's going to spend time with the kids, what that looks like, where they're going to live, all of those kinds of things. And historically, the kids have been really left out of that. So all these plans have been happening and nobody's really thought that the kids were important enough to ask. So that's been my focus as well, to meet with children, understand what it's like for them to be in their family, and then go into a situation not dissimilar than this, around a table with a mediator. So I don't do both. I will just be the child consultant or the mediator. I won't do both roles. And often they're represented by their lawyers and parents. So the room is quite full. And then I advocate for children on behalf of children. So I'm their voice going into that forum. And I really try and use that opportunity to influence parents about the things that they could be doing better to help support their kids. That seems like a really arrogant position, doesn't it? Because I really don't come from a point where I know everything. How can I? My children are still growing and still challenging me, right? So I don't know everything about parenting, but what I do know about is what it's like for kids and what they tell me it feels like when they're in the middle of conflict. Okay, so when they're in the middle of tension, when the world as they know it has changed and they're trying to navigate that. And I'm trying to bring parents back into a room where they're a bit more focused on what the kids' needs are, rather than point scoring in conflict across. So I love that part of my job, because the kids really, really respond, and this will be a theme that I talk about. Kids really respond to me sitting down with them. And if you see me at Lambton Park on a picnic rug, don't come and say hello. They're probably not my children. But I'm usually on a picnic rug under a tree in Lambton Park, and that's my therapeutic environment. I won't sit in an office with children. I want them to feel comfortable. So I'm sitting with them for an hour each, and I'm talking to them about what it's like to be them. Every single kid I have ever seen responds to that. They respond to no distractions, just sitting. Yes, I've got some tasks to do, but just being with somebody else who's asking about them. All kids love this. It's fundamental to who they are and the acknowledgement that they want. So tonight, I thought I would focus a little bit on the importance of fathers, okay? Because I have been around family court, and I've been around in the child protection circles, and I've been around families for a long time. And what I have seen for a long time is an undervaluing of fathers in children's lives. And this kind of expectation that there is no equity in terms of providing care for children. And so I've had lots of experiences where I've dealt with lots of fathers who've just kind of thrown their hands up and gone, I can't do this anymore. I'm walking on. My kids can come and knock on my door when they're 18, and we can have a relationship then. And I'm like, no, you don't get to walk away. You don't get to walk away. And what does it take to engage you back in? And so I do a lot of work with dads just to build their confidence around their importance and the things that they can be doing to develop their relationship with their kids. What does that feel like for you guys to hear? Is there, does that sort of resonate for you? Because most of the kids, except for yours and mine, that we're talking about are under 10 here. So you've got a few years under your belt in terms of, but what about your experiences of having some equity in terms of mum? Is that happening for you guys? Because you're a new generation of parents.
What
Is that a thing?
what you just said about the father walking away, that like hits true. That's pretty much the motivator for me to be being a better father. The equity side of things, it's only very recently, probably the last year or so, that I was raised where, like in a fatherless home, and I had this belief. I don't know where it came from. It was sort of like unconscious of it, where my wife was the one who looked after the kids, and I go and work, and it was like that old school sort of
Yeah, it's a
mindset.
traditional.
And I come in and I do my thing, and I'm there for the kids, and I'm more present than my father was. I'm doing enough, but there wasn't that equity there. She was taking all the load and was causing a lot of rub points, and I just didn't see it. So
yeah, so that resonates with you.
oh, massively, yeah.
Yeah, I think, and there's this evolving through society now of this, how we were raised, this, this quite conservative approach where roles were quite traditional. Male was the breadwinner, mother was on the domestic kind of scene, and, dad was seen as a bit of a helper, but mostly a contributor. Things have shifted massively. Two parents in a house, both likely working these days. Everybody has to have hands on deck, and kids are just engaging a little bit more with both parents because they have to, because they're there, which is a great thing. But it's, there are all these challenges around it, but it'll get there. But I think the point about equity is we all have to work for it. I've worked with people who, I remember this one detective who used to say to me, I've got to get home and bath the kids. I go, well, Matt's at home. Can't he bath the kids? Oh, no, I would never give that task to Matt. That's, I don't think he should be the one bathing the kids. That's my job. Okay, when did this become jobs and delineations, and why aren't there negotiations? And everybody can do everything, with the exception of breastfeeding. I can do that. But then there's those plastic things you can wear. Don't do that. That's too far. That's gone too far. But yeah, really, really important to kind of socially move. But I think what's happened is it's really displaced the role of males and not really being able to kind of understand exactly where you fit. It was kind of clear a generation ago, not so clear now. Might be clearer in 20 years' time, but kind of now is a little bit of forging ahead. So that's not so great for you guys, but you're trailblazers, right? So you're going to kind of, work through this. But I want to talk about how important it is for you guys to be present. And I'm not saying I don't know you. I know you, and I know you. And I'm not saying you're not an important role. You don't have an important role for your kids. And obviously you're here tonight to kind of, get a little piece of gold you can take away. But this is about now giving you a bit of a blueprint to maybe go and have conversations about what the data is saying, what the research is saying, and what the expectations are now and what benefits your kids. So let me give you from my paper a few kind of key points and we can talk about them. It's very well established now that all of you being dads will have, being involved with your kids and a presence in your kids' lives, you will impact on their well-being. Okay, so you're going to impact on their development as children. You're going to affect their social competence, performance at school, and their emotional regulation. If you just think about those 3 points, just by being present and involved, this is a fair chunk of a kid's day, right? I like the one about emotion regulation. So I think that's really important for kids, particularly young kids. You experience a fair bit of tantrums, don't you? Like,
Occasionally,
yeah. Tantrums aren't always tantrums. They're just miscommunications in a child's language, right? But this is about kind of, being present. So a supportive relationship between parents is linked to better self-regulation in a child. And so countries such as Norway and Sweden, they already recognise this stuff. They already kind of go, you know what? Dads are just as important as mums, and we are going to set up policies and systems to make sure that fathers get recognised. So paternal leave, and they want them to be just as present. So they're changing the narrative about who is the primary caregiver. Have you heard that term before? Yeah, it's a really interesting one. It kind of is suggesting that there can be only one person there.
Someone's been prioritised over something else.
Yeah. Whereas I think that's language we could actually do without. And some of these points go to that. So fathers are not just helpers for mothers. Okay, so they're important to children in their own right. Children with sensitive and supportive fathers have higher levels of social confidence and better peer relationships. Children whose fathers provide them with learning materials and speak with them frequently, they perform better at school and have more advanced language skills. Okay, so there's another tip about that's things like just being involved. That's not your simple reading. That's teaching. And, if you've got kids who are at school, it's about taking an interest and learning and taking some responsibility for their things like their homework and learning and, keeping them accountable and, keeping the conversations going. So fathers can serve these roles even when they do not live with the child. Regardless of whether they live together, children who have regular positive contact with their fathers tend to regulate their emotions better than children who have no contact with their fathers. So this is a big issue that I come across a lot in mediation and child consulting. I deal with all these, and I'm not going to stereotype, but I'm going to say in my experience, the majority have been mothers who've been in a high conflict situation with their ex-partner, and they think that the best way forward is to isolate the father from the child. Of course, in their mind, it's less conflict for them, but look at what the loss is around children who don't get to have experiences with their dads. And I'm not talking about dads who are high risk or abusive or, have harmed their children. Clearly, there's risk issues around that. These are dads or parents that pose no threat or risk and, should be involved in children's lives. So it's really interesting when I talk to these mums about, what do you think the impact is going to be on little Johnny, who's not going to have any contact with dad? What do you think the outcome is going to be? Not very often can they display any insight to me about the impact of them. They're too entrenched in conflict. So that's one of the really sad realities about when things go wrong, that, you can lose sight of the best interests of the children. So when we talk about direct effects that fathers have on children, they can definitely influence kids by the relationship they have with the mother. So remember, and was it you who said kids sponges was the word? Yeah.
Yeah, I was supposed to talk about parenting, but I spoke.
No, you spoke about
Spoke
washing
about
up.
cleaning.
Washing up, that's
I'm
right.
not a sponge.
But children are. So what happens is that what they see, that's how they learn. So if they see a relationship between adults that's not great, tension, conflict, arguments, then that's how they learn to kind of interact and relate. And we all understand, right, that life's not smooth sailing and those things will happen time to time. I've absolutely yelled the house down at my children. I do believe my neighbour came in with a bottle of wine one time and just said, I don't know if you need this or not, but my ears tell me you do. Which I'll know what about this.
Just to the point, I think spoke about it a little while ago around what did you just talk about
The relationship between the parents.
yeah, that's the father's relationship with their kids. If a boy sees their father as competition, they will never be able to see another man as like an ally or a friend. That was something that I read recently, was just that, you know, if you sort of build this relationship with your son of like always been in competition with you, so we're gonna play this game and I'm gonna always win.
Yep.
And it's like it's always a competition.
Yeah.
And if you sort of build that relationship with your son, then he will never see other men as allies. And I think that feeds to like ego and all that sort of stuff. It's like, Mitch is here and it's probably more subconscious than conscious.
Yeah.
It's like Mitch is here and he's gonna beat me and I have to beat him and I have to win and I'm gonna be better than him. And this whole feeding that was a really interesting thing that I read. I don't know if that feeds into
I've got a
your
section on
experience,
masculinity and you can see that attitude might very well play out in playgrounds and things like that, you know, and that's how the social interactions and the relationships with peers are affected. So that's probably.
I see it with Willow now. She's like, she always wants to like, she's got to first. I want to win, and I'm like, where did this come from?
Well, part of that is egocentric child development. So part of that is I.
Yeah.
I need this, I need that, so they haven't really formulated the ability to be hugely empathetic to others' perspectives. So it's good in a way. She's right where she needs to be, but
she always gives me like little like, it's okay, she's fine. She's fine.
Yeah, she's fine.
Stage 5, well, stage 6.
Yeah.
She's still doing when she's 10, then we have a problem.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So something to be mindful, the relationships that you have around kids are really important. That respect, that those positive interactions, really strong kind of positive language. It's like I said, it's not always easy. We have to live these lives, which are not always 3 weeks on holidays in Bali, which I bet was lovely, and you all got on really well, and that's great, isn't it? But then you get back to the life and the routine has to come in, and it's hard, kids, you got to put shoes on and go to school and kind of do this stuff, and you get a bit of pushback. Didn't get that on holidays, did you? Nobody had to put their shoes on, did they? Yeah, that's right. Take us all to Bali now.
Sort of. Collective buying capacity, pretty strong.
Yeah.
That's right.
So family structure isn't so important for kids. Everybody says you need a mum and your dad, or you need 2 parents. I don't want to get into the whole gender kind of thing, but I'm just going to generalize. That's not really kind of necessary. You need loving, supportive parents or caregivers to do the job. That's what kids kind of need. Yes, they will thrive better from people they're related to, but it's okay. As long as they get the things that they need, people can take on those responsibilities. I myself don't have a relationship with my mother, but I have a wonderful, incredible relationship with my mother's sister. And I consider her more of a mother to me than my own mother. So I've kind of lived that firsthand, where I didn't respect the choices my mother made at all. But this person who was nurturing and caring and available and all the things my mother wasn't, I can see those qualities in me, and I despise the ones in my mother. So yeah, I think that's okay. So it's not like we have to be devastated or we can't support kids through changes in family structure. We just have to get the fundamentals right about supporting them. Talked about social policies. I want to talk about, you talk lots about masculinity, don't you? Well, we talk lots about masculinity. And I found this study on an Australian study, because I wanted to break it down in terms of what might be key tips for relationships with your sons, but also maybe with your daughters as well. So the research is saying quite clearly, today's men express their maleness in different ways. Some adhere to more traditional models of masculinity, characterized by beliefs in male superiority and endorsement of risky or violent behaviours. Others embrace more progressive stances. But how do men develop their ideas, beliefs and behaviours in relation to masculinity? The study has shown they do it from their fathers. There hasn't been much empirical research around this, but these researchers set out to kind of demonstrate through a range of questions that the hypothesis was, is that the biggest influence for young men? And yes, it is.
Yeah, from the research that I've done,
Yeah.
which is probably as much as you do, it's pretty clear that your father will be your biggest model in life,
Yeah.
good or bad.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, obviously, you can have other ones.
Yes.
But that one, obviously, I mean, I'm shit. Like, if your father's not in your life from an early age, then he probably won't play a big role.
But if you had another male,
yeah, that would be whatever's sort of that primary primary male in life, will, good or bad, will be the primary influence of your masculinity.
Yeah.
So obviously, you can change that, but
they were saying that young men whose fathers support more traditional forms of masculinity are more likely to do so themselves. So that's that repetitive generational kind of stuff. So this highlights a critical role fathers play in steering boys towards healthier ideas around masculinity. So
I think that speaks to your point as well about, I guess, guys of our generation kind of trying to forge this new. Like I said today, we've got probably 100 times the information that parents had 40, 50 years ago. And so now we have this awareness, but it's like, well, what do you do with all that information? And you kind of have to build up. Yeah, we're really trying to break those subconscious patterns, I think, of what it's like, oh, I know better than this, or I know different than this. How do I said like that story? Just like all I have is like that my dad in the back of my head going, like, Willow's crying or throwing a tantrum for no reason. I tell my dad, stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. I just had that in the back of my head. I'm just like, that's probably not the best thing to say to her right now. And yeah, this whole premise of, am I here to hurt or help?
yeah.
I think that's been really powerful for me.
Can you have those conversations in that moment?
Well, yeah, so I just laugh at myself now. Like I'll have
Okay.
that thought and I'm just like, oh, and then I'll just try and like stay calm. And it's just like, all right, well, yeah, I'm here to help. I'm not here to harm. What can I do to help?
Yeah.
It doesn't always happen like that. Geez, like,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's just, yeah,
Helpful to kind of stand back. I've got this great story how when I was parenting my children who were younger, so this is getting on, 20 years ago, the timeout, it was huge.
Yeah.
Timeout. And I just didn't find that worked, when they can reach handles and kind of, like they don't want to stay and for the 15th time you're putting them in timeout and it's all very frustrating for everybody. So yeah, that's right. Those shows which were just like hardcore or yeah. So I put myself in timeout. So I just tried this one day where I locked myself in a room. And it was fascinating. They didn't know what to do. And all of a sudden it came from, I'm sorry, please come out. And there was no conversation that was needed, but the reflection happened because I changed up the intervention.
yeah.
Brilliant. So
Well, that was a conversation we had a few weeks ago. I said, oh, trying to like remove, like when they're just losing the plot, they just can't regulate, just remove them from that environment. And then you sort of said to me, well, just remove yourself from the environment and just
just walk away, let them do their thing.
Let them do their thing. I was like, yeah, but they're in the middle of the kitchen.
Okay, good be safe.
But yeah, it's just like that was a really like interesting thing for us. Like, oh, cool, that's a different strategy.
Yeah.
It's just like actually just cool, just remove yourself and
I've
Is that how Willow got on the roof?
I wish I'd talk about that. Thank God I wasn't working for docs when I saw that.
I watched an interesting clip last week or so. I'm sure you've heard like Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
But he was no, he's going a bit off the rails these days. I saw a clip on him talking about timeouts for kids, and it was quite interesting because he was saying how negative impact that can have, making kids have timeout because they're in the moment of feeling that emotion, and you're teaching them to don't feel the emotion because you're going, you can't feel like that, get out of here, and you're disconnecting the connection, which is what children need with the parent.
Yeah.
So you're taking that away from them in the moment of stress, which is very detrimental in his view.
Yeah.
And I thought that seemed pretty feasible. I think,
The things we know now that make complete sense, but we're also the things that make complete sense, back then. So I don't know. It's a tough gig, right? And sometimes all logic and rational thinking goes out the window. Like I found myself in front of my kids saying things like practically frothing at the mouth, and it finished, and I'm like, I hate myself. How did I get to that place? And I know better.
When you get to that point out in public, you don't give a shit.
But it's real, right? That's the thing, is there is no perfect parenting. We can't, don't be striving for perfection. It doesn't exist. We will make mistakes, and those beautiful mistakes are the things that will build a whole lot of, they'll build stories and memories and resilience and, reflection of our own. Yes, we should have done things better, and we will, and we'll learn, and but I think you don't not do them. So this,
I think the biggest thing is that every child's different. So even though they're both from you, partner, my two are 6 years apart, and they are chalk and cheese. What worked for one does not work for the other one. So you got to totally rewrite the playbook more or less to figure out the second one, and it takes you almost as long. And it's like
I get that. I've got 2-3 years apart.
Yeah.
And completely different. Same everything, just personality just is different. And absolutely what I used for the first one could not use for the second one, which was not great. I wish it was the other way around.
Twins as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah,
Totally.
totally different. That's even more tricky because you got to kind of intervene at the same time, and you could be giving
You've got two
different
different
messages. And yeah, right.
One understands and one doesn't.
Yeah, yeah, right. Okay.
That's fine.
Is that I'm not sure if that's the word you used before.
No, I think I used a positive one. That's the way I want to say that.
You did. You did. So yeah, the thing about masculinity is that what they're saying, and this fits perfectly with what you're doing, the only thing that is going to work with influence of younger males and their masculinity in terms of a more modern approach, like away from that aggression and violence, is programs where you involve fathers and sons. So that is where that kind of that influence mostly comes, because yeah, you might be standing out the front instructing and being an ultimate role model, but they're looking at dad going, what's my dad doing? How does my dad respond to this environment? And I want to do what dad does, and I'm going to follow him. So really good job about doing that, because it fits in with all the research about what works and what doesn't work.
We sort of spoke to it a couple of weeks ago around having challenging conversations. So Jay says something that is derogatory or whatever, and it just sort of doesn't really it doesn't fit the values of, I guess, where I see myself or men, and I think in that situation, that's almost like the perfect breeding ground or plot to go. Like we're doing that with my son and Jason's dad with his son, and I'm just like, if I challenge his dad, and then how we communicate,
Yes.
like there would be nothing better for that son to see that conflict resolution and conversation and how that played out.
You're teaching strategies around.
It's helpful for us, but it's also
Well, you're role
as
modeling.
well. Yeah.
Well, that's how they learn. All the research says there's no greater influence than dad.
So I think if we can, that's the goal, is like, each of us in our own environment, when stuff happens, it's being able to speak about today, adequately articulate yourself in those situations. It's like whether it's your partner or another guy or whatever, it's like, they're always watching, aren't they?
And do you know what? When I talk about getting things wrong, stuffing up, I seriously mean it. Like it happens all the time. But best thing you can do is not to kind of go, oh shit, that was really bad, and I'm just going to talk to my partner about that, and I'm just going to skulk off over here and be best if we kind of just forget that ever happened. Absolutely not. Go back in, say you're sorry. I'm sorry I behaved in that way. I wish I didn't behave in that way. I should have handled things a lot differently. I would like to be the person that communicates to you a lot better in that moment. Do you think this is something we can work on? Hallelujah. What a much better learning how the shitty situation out and learn from it with kids by just saying, I'm sorry, or acknowledging kind of, and you know what will happen? They will learn to say, I'm sorry. My kids do it all the time. I watch them now, older, and I've always apologized for moments. Maybe I did it a lot. Maybe I did it a lot.
It's the best thing you do for them.
Repetition, I guess.
So now, if I just, and obviously they're 21 and 18, so they're adults and they should get it. But if I don't say anything, and just kind of retreat, they'll come to me and say, I'm really sorry for the way I behaved. So they'll role model exactly what I've been saying to them for 15 years. And I didn't have to do anything except be humble and reflect on my behavior, which is hard for some people to do, but the benefits far outweigh not doing it. It's a very important thing to do, is to teach them that you can move through situations of conflict or a relationship that doesn't feel okay in that moment. That doesn't have to define the next 5 days, or it's a moment, it's time, now let's move on, and kind of, really good skill for life, I think.
Like,
So I was going to say a bit of an old school attitude though. Like my father, I can't ever remember him saying sorry,
Yes.
even to my mum or anyone else,
Yeah.
particularly myself. So
Yeah.
really hard to actually step out of that
Yeah.
programming to actually say it to your kids when you're blown up.
Is it hard
Lost
for
your
you?
shit.
Is it hard for you to say that?
It is, but these sort of forums and just learning generally, I've got there and realised, it's that realisation, being a real arsehole. Go back and actually, and they respond to it a whole lot better than just continually being an arsehole.
And you know what I've found? And I've usually been like, sometimes in the morning, and I was in a space with a very serious job and kids to get ready in the morning and whatnot. No excuses, it was a calling. But I felt better. I felt so
Totally agree with that.
much better.
Yeah.
And I didn't carry it. And it slid away from me, and I knew that I'd rectified the situation and that I didn't need to carry it around with me anymore. And that is more important. It's not more important than the lesson, but in terms of being a battle weary parent who's got to get back in there in the afternoon and let's do it all over again, you got to let it go. So
I think it gets their buy-in a bit more.
Totally.
If they realise you're stressed and blown up because maybe they did something wrong, you want them to do something that you ask them to do. Everyone's done it. Go and do this 50 times. You've asked them and you blow up.
well, let them know you're a human too, right?
Exactly.
You're not just a robotic parent who's kind of go, do this, do the dishes, have you done this, kind of, I need you to clean out your bag, get your sandwich out of here. It's like,
It is. Between how many times you fucking tell them to do something, and it's like, I know if I get shitty, they'll react.
Yeah.
It's time to get shitty. It's like, then they'll do it.
Yeah.
There's a certain age.
If I don't get shitty, they won't do it.
You can't do that too early because they're not competent. But
Yeah.
then you've taught them that many times, you're like, you need to do this. I'm not your servant is the thing that I say to them a lot. I'm not your servant. You need to
Exactly.
help me, because I'm not here to wipe your ass anymore. You're old enough to know how to thing in the dishwasher.
And in my experience, like I said, 21-year-old 18, still doing it.
Yeah.
Still doing it. Still
Probably still do it for my parents.
still doing it. So I don't know that and I think that's the dynamic of living with your parents, right? Being in that role of being a child. Because even though I've got adults, mini adults, or people, young girls who like to think they're still my kids. And so they default to that. But in other ways they kind of lift their game. But
Even at 18, like, don't they say the brain's still developing until you're like 23, 24 or
well,
something?
for boys, it's 27. Yeah, so your brain has not fully developed as a male until you're 27. So there's a lot of actions and decisions you're going to make between that age and 27 that are questionable, really. Yeah, unpacking the dishwasher is not on the list of your priorities. Yeah. What is it in my house?
Take that off the list.
It's funny though, as you get older, your relationship with your parents, like they, like just said, do this, do that every morning, hurry up. When you go to your mum and dad's house or whatever, in the holidays or something like that, or Christmas, they're happy to ponder around you because they've missed that for so long.
Yeah,
They're like, that's right, I'll do it.
yeah,
You're like,
I
no,
know.
no.
Don't we relish that? Yeah. Oh,
It's
okay.
nice having your kids back again, doing what you used to do.
Yeah, yeah, because I was only reading something today that
You really just want to nurture your children.
you do want to nurture your children. And I was reading something that said exactly that. Sitting here, we might be complaining about how many times we've got to ask them to do things and the days are long and they're repetitive and it's Groundhog Day and you just need a holiday and you don't. But and then it's done and then they're gone. And then all you want is to have a person like your child there to say, how about that dishwasher? Do you reckon you'll be able to unpack it on the 13th time that I ask you? So
you
we
miss
do miss that. Yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens.
I think I don't know who put it out, I think it might have been Jordan Peterson said something about, I'm pretty sure it was Jordan Peterson, he said something about don't like wish away the early years.
Yeah.
He said once kids hit 4, they lose a lot of their innocence and just unadulterated, just absolute
Joy and
child, you know, all that stuff that you sort of love. And it's like, don't try and push them away, or don't wish those early years away, and really cherish those like 0 to 4, because they're just, little sponges, and
which
it's
is
the
true.
most beautiful sort of, yeah.
But you're dog tired and you can't.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Like,
0 to 12 months. Shit.
Still remember that. Does nothing for me.
like seared into it.
Yeah, I think it's just like, for me, it's just like all these little things are just little reminders.
Yeah, they are.
Little reminders like, oh yeah.
Very
shit.
important. Very
When I wrote that post this morning, I was like almost crying, just looking at like
know.
Willow getting up and doing this little presentation. I was like, man, like
that girl.
far out.
She knows how to PowerPoint. Wow.
She did. Jeez.
She's advanced straight off the
She's
diner.
probably
But,
It's not much different to when you grow up and you learn that saying that you always got told when you were young, you know, enjoy your childhood.
yeah.
And then you just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And then when you grow up, you go, like, I know what they meant now. It's the same with the kids,
What's
you know, you
It's the best time of your life.
Yeah.
You know, God, no, it wasn't. Oh, yes, it was.
I said some of the kids next door. It's like, oh, I've got to go. I've got soccer to go to the gym. I've got soccer training straight after this. And then I've got to walk around the aquarium, the Sydney Aquarium tomorrow to feed the fish. Oh, God.
Yeah. Yeah. Really tough.
stressful.
Brutal. Absolutely brutal.
Hold off.
You should do that on 4 hours sleep and do 96 kilometers or something.
Yeah, or not. So good stuff around the masculinity and really keeping an eye on connecting with young boys, and remember that they are watching kind of every move that you do. I've just got some info. How long have we got?
You've got 3 minutes.
3 more minutes.
Last week's been for 6 hours, so.
Last one went for
Come on,
6 hours.
Yeah.
I want to talk about relationships. I know that you cover up a lot with fathers and sons, but when I was looking through information, I thought there's some really key things here about daughters as well. Has everybody got a daughter in the house? Yeah, right. This is one of my good luck. Yeah. You haven't seen anything yet.
I did have a
Okay.
sister. I know what it's like.
Yeah. Hang on. What we want to talk about is while mothers are considered like natural kind of caregivers for females, it's really important not to overlook dads in girls' lives, and we need to understand how much a positive role model a male, so dad, is for girls. And there's some really interesting things that I thought I would share with you. father-daughter relationship is complex. Fathers are more than just providers. The way dads approach life will serve as a model for their daughters to create and build their own. This is also the reason why daughters with a healthy and loving relationship with their father are usually more secure and content in their romantic relationships, do better academically or get good grades. They make better choices about who they date, spend time with, and marry. They feel more confident and better about themselves, are usually assertive but not aggressive. And women who grow up with emotionally absent fathers can make bad choices in their lives and have low self-esteem, and they may develop an anxious attachment style and live in a state of distrust and fear. So it's really, really important to develop those really strong connections and relationships. It's about you know, if you think about gender, it can be like I've girls, and so my ex-husband was absolutely mad for rugby union. So my girls don't play rugby union, they play netball. So I think it was at times really tough for him to try and connect with a sport that was quite sort of different. He ended up being netball coach and doing all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think he had to find different ways that he would have automatically connected with a male, I think, which is probably a traditional kind of view and probably something that his dad did with him, but nevertheless it existed. So it's really about you know, dads being present, encouraging your girls, and I was fascinated to kind of understand just the data around that dads set the standard for their daughters' romantic relationships. So who you are, how you do life, what you say, what you do. I don't want to put too much responsibility on all of you.
Yeah.
So you're
Walk
saying-
out here, but he can't like handle it.
So what you're saying is if your daughter dates
Wrong guys.
Joe, probably your fault.
You could reflect on things. But this is fascinating. According to research, girls with good childhood relationships with their dads are more likely to choose romantic partners that resemble them. Fathers set I didn't say physically. Fathers set the standard on how their daughters should be treated by future partners and what they should expect in an adult or romantic relationship. Young women tend to judge all the men who come into their lives based on the example that's set by their dad. If women were treated with respect and care by their fathers, they would expect the same from a romantic partner. It makes sense, right? A good father-daughter relationship bolsters their girls' confidence and provides them with good foundations for self-respect. It's also suggested that girls with strong and healthy relationships with their dads are less likely to become sexually active early on and less likely to experience teen pregnancy. Two fantastic reasons right there why you want to just make sure that they can see you doing a good thing. And, you know, this goes right down to in my house. And I think, you know, because I've got certain views about this stuff and I was able to influence maybe some other families around us, because often, I don't know, I was a bit of a barometer for Chanel. Is Lily going to this party? Would you actually allow her to go to, you know, do you know this address? Is there anything I should worry about? No, it's fine.
Let me look up one.
Yes,
Just
No, never did that. Never did that. But, you know, sometimes it would be, you know, is this behaviour normal? Is this kind of, you know, so we threw things like period parties when the girls got their periods, and acknowledged it with a little bit of fanfare and a little bit of positivity, and if I wasn't home in the afternoon, which I wasn't, I was the morning shift and my ex-partner was the afternoon shift, the conversation about how they were feeling, whether they needed hot water bottle, you know, like all that kind of stuff, whether they had products, was as equal with him as it was with me. And I think that's really, things like that are really important for kids, for young girls, to know that it doesn't matter. They can approach either parent and get the same support. One generation ago, and I've got a friend who's my age who grew up as an only child, and would not even, has never been to the shop for his wife and bought any products, because I just can't do it. My dad never did it. I'm not doing it. Like, come on, get with the times. Exactly.
Punch yourself in the face.
Yeah,
For
right.
example, you do what your dad did.
Yeah, exactly. Not changing, but he had 2 boys, so he didn't need to, right? So I think it's these little things that make all the difference with the relationship with girls, where they can come to you and talk to you about this stuff. If they can talk to you about that, they can talk to you about boys. They can talk to you about sex. They can talk to you about all the things they're feeling. So you are creating an open door for them about that subjects are not off the table. And that's really important. And it starts with something that's really quite basic.
So no matter how like it makes you uncomfortable, like you've got to really push that uncomfortableness to provide that support. And if you do that, then it'll fruit later.
Yeah.
Don't you think though that, like, we're always teaching gender specific? So if you've got a boy, you know, you're talking about sex and anatomy and all this sort of stuff specific to that gender, but we're not always thinking about talking about the other sex, even if you don't have a girl, for instance. Should you be normalizing those conversations, those awkward or tough conversations around things like what girls are going through at certain ages and stuff like that?
Absolutely.
You're always thinking about what gender you've got, but thinking about the other side of it, so that when they get in those situations, they're like, yeah, I'm across that. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I love that
As a
approach.
15-year-old boy just goes, oh yeah, I'm across all that stuff.
Reassuring from a girl. If you've got 15-year-old
Yeah.
girls and you went out with a boy and you went, you know,
married at 17.
no, but you went out with a boy and you said, you know, and you got a period while you're out, and you said to this boy, I can't stay here. I've got to go. I've rung my parents. I'm going. But if they were actually able to say, if she was actually able to say, look, this happened, and I think I want to go home, he would completely understand that. So these conversations should happen in a household.
Yeah.
And they should happen with, you know, we're just starting with dads, brothers, appropriately, you know, like who somebody who's going to respond appropriately. But, you know, I remember John being in a car with one of Lily's friends, and we did a lot of shared sort of pickups, and she was 15, and he said, Laura, nice to see you. How's your day today? Oh, shit, John, I got my period today and it's really heavy, and I just want to go home and lay on the lounge. Okay, he says, thanks for that. Should I just take you home right now? Yeah, that'd be good. So also a household where it's okay. It's a bit like a cold or a, you know, so just take the stigma away from it, because it's just, you know, and as a female, knowing males who know more about that is so important, really. So dads affect their daughters' confidence, and so this is a lot, isn't it? You're actually affecting a lot.
Well, I think from what I've read, and it's not a competition, But from what like the gist that I got was that fathers play a much more important role with boys and girls with academic, social, emotional, like all the things that you rattled off. Fathers play a much bigger role in developing all those things in their kids than mothers, which I found really interesting. It's like, oh, cool. So it's like we really like it is really like we are really important. Arguably, not a competition. Arguably more important. Like,
yeah, and society hasn't really valued that. I mean, you could remember. I mean, I don't know if any of you had, you know, like generationally have had experiences with the family court or anything like that. But I don't know, 20 years ago, the perception was that no children lived full time with their dad if matters were going before the family court, because all mothers were the primary carers, and it was quite a standard little schedule to have dads have kids every second weekend.
yeah.
That's not happening anymore.
Do you think that's like just? Do you think that's significantly affected like that that generation of just that removal?
Yeah, it's affected the relationships. It's affected the valuing of the role, and it's probably affected the way we parent and the presence that fathers have had or not had. And like I said, in 20 years' time, I think it'll be more defined. It is such a transitional time just now. Yeah, there is a lot going on, but what's happening is it's, you know, the role of fathers is getting recognised. Well, the importance, it's not the role of fathers. Fathers have always been important, but the impact on children's development and the influence they can have for positive outcomes down the end is now there's data around it. So you would not stand before a judge and say, I'm the mother, I should have the children, and that's the end of the story. No, you're both able to care for the children. I'll decide who the children would be better off kind of being cared by. You don't ever want to get in that situation, really. But the good thing is, for kids, it's not an automatic alienation, really, from fathers.
Judges still sometimes in that old school scenario, like if they had to pick and choose, they would just default mother.
No, I don't. I mean,
I was going to say, I think a big impact to it is a lot of women will resort to going and getting an AVO, and that impacts what fathers can do as well. Massive.
yeah. I mean, I think that
the proportion of females having AVOs to male AVOs would be phenomenally fucking skewed.
yeah.
Phenomenally.
Well, as is, and I was just having this conversation on the phone 5 minutes before I got here. As is the representation of male perpetrators of domestic violence is significantly higher than females, but that's a different thing we're talking about. You're talking about weaponising a apprehended violence order to isolate a father. I mean,
Yeah, that's going down a rabbit hole.
I mean, we should be trusting a system that has to investigate those kind of issues. Yeah, no, but it's the only system we've got. And I think police are much more educated these days around how and why. But it does happen. I mean, it does happen. But I don't think it takes away from the statistics out there.
You're obviously in the cops.
I was, yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen? I don't know if
It's going down a rabbit hole. It's not helping anybody parent when I start reading about work.
No, because my question was just like, have you seen people investigating that sort of stuff?
I've seen people have to have arguments with duty officers who are saying take an AVO out, and they're going, I haven't got fucking grounds to do it.
That's right.
Too bad. Take the AVO out,
Yeah.
and there's like shit like that. It's all, you know,
Yeah,
it's just a big system and everyone's fucking covering their ass.
yeah,
So the care factor, cover
yeah,
ass retaining.
yeah. Yeah, that's why I'm busy as a mediator. It's not it. It's why I've got to, because these days courts are just saying, nah, you don't come here until you've actually been to mediation to sort out these issues. And so even, you know, women who, well, it's mostly women, some men will say, I can't sit in a room, you know, with my ex-partner and talk about these issues. And I say, no, that's actually not your choice. This is to talk about children, and there are ways around that. There's Zoom and there's, you know, things like that. But yeah, I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, long time. It'll take a long time. Yeah, I know where you'd be coming from. Dads can help promote a positive body image. This is another fascinating thing. Another reason why fathers are important to their daughters is they play a huge role in how girls view their bodies. Daughters take much into consideration, not just the way their dads speak about their appearance, but how they speak about other women as well. We all know that person, don't we? Yeah, who kind of sexualizes females or and in front of kids. They don't seem to kind of really worry about and comments about appearance or so good fathers know the value of respect and speak in such a manner about how other people look regardless of their size, shape or weight. And studies further have shown that girls who've had healthy relationships with their dads were less likely to develop anxiety and depression. And there's also less risk of being dissatisfied with their appearance, which means less likelihood of developing body dysmorphia or eating disorders. This translates into better mental health and emotional health, which is beneficial. That is huge. That is huge because young girls, and actually the stats are pretty much on par these days with young boys as well in terms of body image, and but how other people see them, and it's this isn't all on dads or it's not all on mums. It's there's a lot that social media has to do with this, and just how the world kind of influences the way they see themselves. Lots of airbrushing, lots of computer images, like perfection. Your skin's got to be nice, your hair's got to be beautiful, you've got to wear the right clothes, you've got to look right, nice boobs, nice ass. If your ass isn't big enough, you've got to go and get a new one. So it's never ending, and I think for me that just really spoke to valuing and regarding your gorgeous daughters and your young boys for who they are and how they appear, and you know, it's also about making sure that you use language that, you know, doesn't, you know, that talks about their intelligence other than just their physical appearance, or talks about their skills. You know, you're really kind. You know, I really like the way that you showed empathy for that person. Not that, oh, you know, you're looking absolutely stunning tonight. I really like what you've done with your makeup. So it's about remembering that if they're only ever going to be judged on their appearance, they're not going to be valued by a fair percentage of the population. No one person is appealing to everybody.
Do you have some language or some tools around talking about appearance, and or do you have any tools and stuff around if someone comes, if your daughter or your son comes to you and that's a topic that they're constantly speaking about? Yeah, is there anything
I always like with every kid, I think there's always an opportunity when they approach you about an issue or a thought or a concern or like it sometimes they'll start the conversation with an entirely different subject and just kind of weave it in there. Car rides are the best places for conversations because no one can get out. But it's, you know, it's often an opportunity to not be distracted. So it's talking to them and getting them to kind of tell me how you're feeling about school. Tell me what's happening at school. This is one of my favourite lines. Tell me about your day from when you kind of got out of the car this morning to when I picked you up, and don't leave any detail out. And see if they can just do a narrative kind of on their own, and then you'll pick up on stuff. So how did you handle that? You know, when Molly wouldn't let you play with the skipping rope, how did you handle that? If they want to talk about someone teased me or somebody kind of said, I would go back to the things that they did about it. How did that make you feel? Is there something I can help you understand about that? What are your thoughts on what you'd like to do if that happens again? I'm not really big into blaming other kids. I think it's a wasted conversation. My kids have come home and said, Danny hit me on the back of the head and, I was really upset. I understand what their feelings are, but I might make a comment about, look, it sounds like Danny wasn't having a great day. That's about all I'll say about that. I won't talk about retribution. I won't talk about that. I'll say, how do you think you could handle that if that situation comes up again? What are the things that happen just directly before that might give you a bit of an indication that you need to kind of, move away from that? Honesty is the best thing with kids. If you don't know the answer to something or you don't understand, just say that. I'm not sure I really understand. Could you find some other words to help me understand what that was like for you, or what you're feeling when somebody teased you about the pimple on your face? Is there something you think that we can do to help? Would you like, if it's a medical thing, or if it's a concern, or if it's a, I don't understand what's happening with my body, or would you like to talk to somebody about that? Do you think we could find somebody together that you could talk to about that? When I'm feeling like that, I can sometimes go and talk to my doctor about what's going on, and sometimes they have the answers. Would you like me to take you there? Would you like me to come and talk to the teacher about how you're feeling? Or would you like to go and talk to the teacher? So it's all this empowerment. It's not taking the problem away and solving it for them. It's empowering them to do it. But it's not giving them strategies to go back in there and punch Danny because he's hit you in the back of the head, right? That gets nobody anywhere. But kids will come to you for all kinds of things and make the time. So if you're doing something guilty, if you're kind of rushing around and kind of, you're getting things ready, or you're in the middle of something, if you can stop, because throughout my experience with kids, I have heard so many kids say, I tried to tell mum and dad. I tried to tell them. When did you try to tell them? Well, it was at dinner time and mum was busy, but I tried to tell her. So that may have happened that way, or it might not have. But if a kid comes up to you in those moments and says, can I talk to you? Or I want to tell you about something. That's the moment. Stop if you can, or at least say to them, it sounds like what you want to tell me is really important. I just want to make sure I put this knife down in a way so little Jimmy doesn't climb up here and get the knife and something doesn't happen. But I'll be with you in 5 minutes. Would you like to go and find a comfortable place for us to sit and chat? Just acknowledge, just give them the space, create the space in which they can talk to you. It might be something innocuous, but one day it might be something really important. It might be a disclosure. It might be, I felt unsafe, or, somebody touched me this way and I didn't like it, and you want to know more details. A big saying in our house, and I don't mind if you use it because it got me through. My kids are pretty okay. There's nothing so awful that we can't talk about it. There's nothing. There is nothing so awful that we can't talk about it. It's not promising working it out. It's not promising change. It's promising them that they can come to you with anything, which is what you want them to do. You want them to come to you with the great stuff, but you need them to come to you with the shitty stuff, right? You need to know what's going on with them. You need to know at 5. You need to know at 12. And you sure as hell need to know in adolescence, right? So you're cultivating these relationships. So when you get down the other end, conversing and talking about hard stuff is just second nature, really.
Do you think it's, from what I'm gathering, it's as much training for you as it is, like, in terms of how to talk to them? It's as much training for you to do that as it is building that relationship and building that space. Would that be accurate? Because you can't just get to your daughter being 16 and you've never really had a conversation about something hard and think you're going to nail it.
But you don't have to nail it.
Yeah, not even that.
There is no script.
Yeah, there's no script. You know what I mean? Like there's not, being present, being there is part of it. But
if you start when they're 16, that's better than not starting at all.
Yeah, but it's like,
well, you build the rapport.
You build the rapport.
If you get the rapport, then I guess she's going to, or he or she will be more willing at that age to disclose to you things because they're used to it.
But you can see, right, how if you say to them, there's nothing so awful, we can't talk about it, and you say this to your kids and you're really attentive to your kids and you want them to know and understand that because they're your kids and you value them, right? And you want them to come to you. That's great. Do that. If your partner comes home and says, oh my God, I've crashed the car. And you go, you fucking what? You fucking crashed the car. Oh my God, what are we going to do? How are we going to afford? Your kids are saying that. They're going to go, oh no. There are awful things, and we know that it's not safe. Yeah, there are awful things that we can't talk about. Yeah, again. So maybe just look around. Take your partner for a drive in the car. Have that out there.
You have to cut that bit out.
Oh yeah, sorry. Who's this beaming to anyway?
oh, no.
Yeah.
So that's about that living how you want to be, right? Not saying you won't stuff up, we all do it, but just start now. Just start cultivating the space, the conversations, just do you want to talk about that? How did you feel about that? Those two simple things will give you a wealth of, they will open up. They're open-ended questions. It's a trick.
Is that to the crashed car?
No, that's the kids. Don't worry about the crashed car. Don't ask closed questions, okay? So, did you have a good day today?
How was your day? Good.
Right. What are you going to get? You get nothing or one word.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear all about your day. Can you tell me everything you remember? Oh, okay. Well, I went to the canteen and, but you can see the difference of asking open-ended questions. You close off the conversation's 5 minutes, like 30 seconds when you ask a closed question. Is anybody getting any traction with kids and questions or, yeah? Do you ask open questions typically?
Oh, I just like just yesterday, when you said like having a conversation in the car, it was in the car with got a double shower head, so the kids still like having a shower with us occasionally.
Yeah.
So last night I was having a shower with Zach, and he goes to me, "Oh, Dad," I'm like, "Yeah, mate." Then he's like, "Oh," I'm like, "What is it, mate?" I said, "Oh, good. What do you want to tell me?" He goes, "Oh, well," and he's the one that's 7, and he starts telling me about one of the girls who has a crush on him, and that he has a crush on her too, and that kind of stuff. It was cute, and but he was super shy about telling me. Yeah, but I just said to him, "Mate, I was as old as you once, mate."
Yeah.
I said, "It's okay, I've done that. That's all good. It's all right to have a crush on someone." And then we talked about, when I met Mum, and I said, you'll probably have crushes on other girls too, mate. But, and so like he was just super shy, but just encourage it out and explain to him that.
What do you think was happening there? Because that behaviour from kids about, do you see how it's like the testing of the?
He's going to see how I react.
That's right. Yeah. So it already exists. So kids will dip their toe in the water and kind of go, Dad, there's something. Oh, what is it, mate? I've only got 5 minutes. What is it? But if you kind of go, tell me, I'm happy to listen to whatever you've got to say. I've got all the time in the world. Let's sit down and chat. Completely different than, hurrying them through a story, because they might take half an hour to tell you what the crux of the story is. Yeah. So that's the other key point. It takes the time it takes with kids. You don't get to set the agenda for that, which is hard because life is waiting for none of us, right? It's not allowing us to kind of take half an hour every day to sit down with each child and kind of go, tell me. For partners and stuff, we rarely have that ability. But if you can weave it in there, or even I'm really big at the moment on changing language with all the families I see around. They get stuck on, I want this time with my children. I want Saturdays, I want Sundays, I want Wednesday nights. And I try and unpack that a bit with them and say, why do you want a schedule? Your kid plays sport on a weekend. Is it that, the child's going to be going to and fro and going to have to pack up their gear and take it back and forth? And I don't know if anybody was the child of separated parents, but I was, and had to go on contact and access, and that was one of the most disruptive and difficult things to do. But I'm trying to get parents to understand now it's not the time, it's the relationship. So it's how you build that relationship with them. Your kid can be with you for a whole day and you might not even interact with them. But what are you doing about your relationship? What are you doing with them? Are you engaged in their activities? Are you present when you need to be at school? Can they come to you about things? Do you do a milkshake and on a Saturday morning? Do you walk the dog together? Do you have time where you bond and just that kid knows that you've given them time? Kids know time is a commodity, it's precious, and there's not much of it. They know that.
Yeah, that brings up a point too on when you've got multiple kids. Like, it's really beneficial if you just go out with one of them.
That's right.
Because you're quite often like 2 kids, So you've never got that one-on-one time.
That's right.
So I know that, you know, at moments when it's happened that, you know, you've got one child and you'll speak to the missus when you get home, you're like, oh, you know, it was a real good day, me and Zach, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've probably been made to feel a bit guilty when we've excluded one child. As long as there's equity about that. I don't know what you do with twins. You kind of same.
Working on that still.
Yeah. But
I
you.
had I took Harper out for a date one night for dinner and a movie.
Nice.
She's pretty cool. She's pretty keen to do it again. And Henry's like, when's my turn? I'm like, as soon as we can fit it in.
Yeah.
Do anything with it.
Yeah.
That was the feedback we got with the father and son program. Was a lot of the guys who said, "Oh, what was the best part of the program?" A lot of them, it's a bit gut wrenching, but they said the half an hour trip home in the car,
Yeah.
because we just got to, like, it was like the fact that they got to spend an hour and a half together, like doing the stuff. But it was like the half an hour trip home or whatever it was, where we just got to, again, in a car, we just got to chat about stuff and one-on-one and have that time. And it was like, that's pretty cool, just to create the space. It's like create the space, right?
That's my superpower when I speak to kids and come back to mediation. Then I do a bit of a report. I only see kids for an hour. So within an hour, I've got to elicit all kinds of information, how they're feeling. Parents do a bit of a questionnaire. But when you create a space for which kids, like, you know, you've got ages of kids where you're not distracted by phones and other stuff. And if you just sit with them and talk to them or do an activity with them, it can be a game or drawing or, you know, something, they'll tell you things. They'll tell you things because they value that you're there for them. They relish it. They'll just kind of go, wow, I don't remember the last time somebody sat down with me and asked me all about me. Do any of us remember the last time somebody just sat down one-on-one across from you and asked you about you?
It's like,
Yeah.
it's really nice. You always ask them.
I need to ask
Somebody who's not paid.
Has anyone like got any specific questions? Like, do you have any specific questions that, like, yeah, anything burning? Any topics or Phil?
Kind of observation just about like behavior modeling. Like you touched on that a few times, and it just reminds me of an ad that's on TV at the moment. I don't know if it's still on, but it's basically that, like a family barbecue sort of scenario, and the kid's bullying another kid.
Yeah, I know the one.
Talking to a girl, or
Yeah.
I think that the dad might burn something, and then the parents get in an argument, and it's all about witnessing behavior and how you address it. Yeah, I think it's crazy to think that that's actually now it's on mainstream TV. An ad like that, like you wouldn't ever have that
No.
5-10 years ago. You know,
No.
it's
It would have been censored.
Would have been in between the smoking ads.
yeah, Wiki Blues and
Marlboro.
but yeah, just modeling behavior. And the other thing that I liked that you touched on about how the language you use around women in general, whether it's the mother, whether it's the grandparents, or whatever it is, or even a work colleague, whatever, but they're picking up on, you know, your dialogue and how you're talking to women, and it's a respect thing as well. Like you're talking about the language. If you're catcalling and stuff to women, if you're a single dad, for instance, and you know, you're making little comments like that, and you know, it goes a long way. Whereas I saw an article about that sort of stuff, and just little things like commenting on your wife or your partner, on how they look, and things like that goes a long way. And even like something I do with my daughter that I stole off someone else, so I can't really take any credit, but I try to, I mean, obviously it's hard to do all the time, but I try to remember to get my daughter, my eldest daughter, who knows, what's going on, to do something together, like her and I together for my wife. So whether that's, picking up a disgusting leaf off the side, on the park or something like that, but just something so small, and then taking it back to, to my wife, and it's a big thing. So
You demonstrate so many things with a gesture like that. And, it's verbal and non-verbal for kids that they're picking up on. It's not all about language, it's your actions as well. Yeah.
that's just my kind of points that I saw that I liked.
Yeah, good.
Good.
Which day side?
Old.
What is it?
Wanna hug
Sorry.
Jump in. It's all good. It's like an ice bath.
You can
there.
do it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's like an ice bucket.
Burning calories.
So there's the age, I don't know what the number is, where there's the formative years for the child, when it's like there's a solidified, if it's 5 or 7, where it's like you've basically 7. And I've got this constant anxiety that, my daughter's coming up for 7, that there's like this concrete, that's it. And a lot of those behaviors that I've displayed, that's it. It's like a shut off, a cut off.
Okay.
For me, I just feel like a lot of years I've kind of squandered with a lot of things going on, and she's coming up for 7, and it's like, have I like broken this part of it? And like, what do I have to do going forward to fix it?
Oh, Jay.
Does that make,
Yeah, I'm going to tell you
Because
something amazing.
yeah.
I talk to my kids about when they're under 7. They don't remember.
Oh, great.
They don't remember much.
It's just like a Men in Black. Sometimes I think that as well. Like
Thing is,
kind of-
but they don't remember much, but I think it's that
Subconscious stuff.
Yeah.
Retained.
Yeah.
It's not worth you being anxious and worried about it, because that's the stuff they're going to pick up on. It's just worth you obviously being reflective and thinking about it and being conscious of it.
Yeah.
I reckon that's another conversation you could have too, even when.
We all don't. I've not seen a perfect family. All kids will describe their family as perfect because that's the only one they know.
Yeah. I think like when you mentioned about, like, I took her up to my brother's up Queensland, I think we're in the car for 7 hours. And when you mentioned, it's funny, like, go up and I'm like, oh yeah, we did have a lot of conversation. Like, yeah, duh, that's pretty obvious. What do I need to do going forward? Like, the date thing as well. She's at the age now where I can do that. So I think it's things like that. You just need to go, all right, I've got to do these things that are outside what I was raised, because you still subconsciously just go through the groundhog. This is what my parent did with me. I don't do anything different. So, yeah.
So it's not a ticker box.
Yeah.
You can't, a lot of it's got to be just fluid and how it happens. There's no blueprint. It's just a lot of trial and error. And you don't have to do anything a certain way. You do it to the best of your ability, and you'll think about what you do, and you're striving to get good outcomes down the other end. But you just, as long as you're developing that relationship all the time and valuing it and giving it opportunities, a date night might work for you, but it might not be what your daughter needs. So she might just love the garden and go out and want to plant a tree and kind of do things like that. But it's about finding out what their interests are and tapping into those
Yeah.
and empowering them to kind of talk to you about, I even have that conversation. I'm thinking I would like to spend time with you just one-on-one, just the two of us. Do you think we could sit down and do a list of ideas about what we could do together that would be fun for you and me? Like, there's an activity there. Just sitting down and doing that. That's great. What do you think we should do first? Let's number them from 1 to 4. Let's plan our day. Okay? How do you think we should do this? What should we do first? Girls love that stuff. Anyway, the writing and the kind of, they'll put flowers on it and glitter and it'd be great.
Picking shells up off the beach.
Yeah.
Taking them all home
Yeah.
and then on a week later.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it'll be stuff you might not have thought about, but you've done the activity together. So you've actually already started. You've started the bonding. You don't have to jump in the car and to go and do the activity to start. You've started it by just saying to her, I've been thinking about this. I'd like to do this. It's really important to me to spend time with you.
Gets them
Should we
talking
do?
straight away.
Straight away.
Once we planned it with Harper, like it was a week later, she didn't stop talking about it every day.
Yeah.
She's like, I can't wait for this weekend, Dad. This is going to be awesome. So it's already-
And you know what they would have loved the best? What they loved the best is the regard and the time. You could have done anything. You could have done anything.
Yeah.
But it was because you did it together and because they had your undivided attention and time where it's uninterrupted. That's the key. Yeah. So set up the expectations, like we're going to go from 10 till 2. Or, if you say all day we're going to go here, if you're not out all day, you don't want them disappointed, right? So really clearly sort of set up, what do you think would be a good day? What time should we leave? What time do you think we should come back?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
When they say we should go now and never come back, you've got sometimes they're not very time conscious. They still can't read the clock.
Or you could take some time, man.
Yeah.
My watch says 10 o'clock now.
Yeah.
We're back before the football starts.
I think your point about, sorry, I think your point about planting a tree reminded me of something. It's like, if you want a tree to be mature in so many years, the best time to plant it is now. So even though you may have missed a period, you're here and you're figuring out all this stuff now, and the best time to start is now.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm still figuring out stuff. I've got an 18-year-old. So,
Good. Yeah.
No, it's been good to listen to.
I've had a couple of questions called in. You sort of touched on it before, not from just from people messaging me.
Right.
Yeah, just having some trouble at school with bullying, and dealing with bullying. One of his boys' best mate has had to leave the school due to bullying. It's really upset my son. I'd love to have some guidance on dealing with this kind of stuff.
So, bullying's a big one for me.
No.
See, Mitch, sleep time.
An awesome session.
Yeah, thanks.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah.
Sorry, we want to turn the barley temperature on for you.
Yeah, I really struggle with the concept of bullying. I have always, I think people use it too much, and the definition of bullying has morphed into a whole lot of behaviours that are not typically bullying. So I like to kind of establish what we mean when we talk about bullying, what kind of behaviours they are. I like to empower kids to build up their coping and their resilience in terms of, that child might choose to behave like that, but how can we behave? What are things that we might like to do differently? I think there's something in there about the loss of relationship with his best friend who's moved on to another school. So there'd be some grief and loss in there. So I would make sure that there's opportunities to keep establishing that relationship outside of school. Have conversations with schools about managing, always communicating really, and keep checking in with your kid, I think. But yeah, I really,
Such an experiment with bullying, like, well, as that topic, because
yeah,
you know, if the kid who's been removed from the school, you then look at what that kid been taught. Oh, if somebody bullies you, run away, go to another school. You know, they're not addressing the issue, are they? It's-
rather an interventionist approach to actually resolution rather than exclusion.
Yeah, so imagine the self-esteem of that kid. Had to change schools because been bullied out of a school.
That's probably feeds into, I just wrote resilience down here, like that's a question that I'm sure you get asked a lot. I get asked a fair bit. It's like, oh, so it's like, oh, I want my kids to need to be a bit more resilient, and you hear it all. It's like, oh, build some resilience. It's a bit of it's a key. It's a fashionable word at the moment. Over the last 10 years, is building resilience. But I think it has value as well. And you mentioned it before. Is there any stuff that around resilience and helping kids, your kids or other kids, build resilience?
So I think resilience is a range of things. It's from experiences. So you can get stronger from experiences. So for kids, it would be allowing them to sit in discomfort or things that are hard or difficult. You hear a lot of families kind of say, oh, like I can't, such and such has died, or, this has happened and I can't, I'm not going to put them through it. You go, actually, kids need to understand the truth, age appropriate, but we need to give them the information so that they know how to respond. In our house, we had a very significant death of a grandparent, and Maya was 10, and she was devastated. It was the first death, and the grief was palpable. It was John's mum, and yes, she was sick for a little while, but you can't explain the death. So there was I talked to her about that, and she couldn't get her head around, she was upset, she was crying. But the way I explained it to her was, it's so sad that Nan has gone, and we need to remember her for all the amazing things that we were able to do with her. But this is our turn. This happens in families. It'll happen to the family next door. It'll happen to other families. Today, it's our turn to experience grief. What do you think we can do to help ourselves through that? What do you need? Well, I don't want to go to the funeral. Okay, that's what you need to do. Then you don't have to go to the funeral. Would you like some photos? Would you like something beside your bed? So it's not, you're kind of immersing them in it, but you're also respecting their boundaries. So it's what they can cope with. So that's how you develop resilience. You don't just decide that a kid can handle it, because you could actually undermine. But it's also about empowering them. It's about communicating with them. It's about talking. If you can communicate with your kids, you can have all of those conversations about how you feel. Why do you think you feel like that? Is there a way in which we can make you feel better? What do you need to do to feel better or feel differently about this situation? That's building resilience because you're building coping
Mm.
skills. Don't take the problem away. I mean, if it's huge and they can't, handle it, but if it's something that they can problem solve and help them with, that's developing resilience. But I would also say that, I have separated in the last 2.5 years and I'm selling my family home. And I would have described my kids as fairly resilient. But no, they've been triggered by certain things and they're not as resilient as I thought. Or you might be resilient in certain areas, but still developing your maturity in others. So I don't think it's an obtainable thing. I think you're always working on it, depending what the issue is.
It's a bit of a moving target, I think.
Yeah.
I sort of, there's a gym, there's a couple of guys I speak to who they've got a Muay Thai gym. I talk about a lot of kids coming in. They're just like, oh, there's just so many wet lettuces. And, these kids just like, they just
don't know what to do.
They just got nothing. They just really struggle to, either express themselves physically or show any sort of mental resilience in doing something a little bit hard. Or
Yeah.
I think I don't know,
Sitting in the discomfort.
Yeah. We see it in the gym as well. Like, obviously, that's just one setting. So essentially, what you're saying is, I guess, have conversations with them around how they're feeling and just trying to make that uncomfortable situation, just try and get a win on the board, just try and
It's
take a step
okay. I
forward.
understand that you'd feel like that.
Yeah.
That's a really shitty situation. Yeah, that's really awful that happened to you. But you know what? It was really good how you handled this part of it. It was really good. You showed a lot of strength when you said this or that you didn't do that. Really proud of you for what you did there. If you're ever in that situation again, you'll be able to do the same thing. Or maybe you might do something different, but you know what to do.
They're just trying to find a win, heaps of positive reinforcement around that.
There's always something.
So they're exposed to those situations.
I'm not a believer that there's not I am a believer that there is always a solution or a positive in every situation. It doesn't matter if it's a mistake or it didn't go to plan. There's always some learning in there that kids can kind of take. You can change the narrative about most things. You can reframe it. So it's like, yeah, but what I really liked was the way you walked away. That was great. You made a good choice there.
I've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
Thanks, Phil. At what age, you mentioned that question, about what it's like to be you.
Oh, yeah.
At what age do you see that being more relevant? Or at 4, 5, 7, 10? Is it just sort of like?
Well, you might not ask it like that. What's it like to be you?
Yeah.
Um,
Just make it age appropriate.
Yeah.
There's not an age. Cool, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah. So that's more me kind of trying to understand when kids are in families, what it's like to be them. So I might ask a variety of questions about, draw me a picture of your family. What are some things you like about your family? What do you like about yourself? How would other people describe you? But you can, what makes you feel happy? You could ask that of a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a really hard question and a bit of a weird one. We talked about equity and Sam's got, kids measure love in time, sort of up on our kitchen cabinets, which I despise writing with whiteboard marker on our kitchen cabinets. But Like, do you see sort of like there being like a minimum effective dose, like, of time spent
With kids?
with your kids? Like, obviously, the more the better. Like, I just think of, you know, people who work shift work,
Yeah.
and even for myself, like, I just think of myself as like I have the kids, have the girls from, you know, on Tuesday morning from sort of 8 o'clock to lunchtime, and then I've got sort of days where I have big chunks of time and stuff like that. But yeah, like I miss them on a Thursday night. I don't go to bed at the moment. I miss them on a Tuesday night as well.
Yeah.
Most mornings I'm not there for breakfast, and I have a real, you know, like tonight. So I see them. I have them Thursday morning. They take a little daycare, and I don't see them all day for Thursday. And then I come here tonight, and then I gym in the morning. Then they go to daycare, and then I see them on a Friday night. And so there's a big chunk of time there where I feel like I don't see them, and I feel like I'm not trying to make it up in other times, but and I know you don't like. For me, I don't feel like I need to be there every single moment of the day or time of the day. But do you see there being like a minimum effective dose of like daily or weekly kind of contact? Or
No, it's quality. It's the time you spend with them, and it's making the most of that. And as they, you know, I mean, they might be more available now, but as they go to school, then you've got other factors kind of, coming in.
100%.
And as they get older, it's about finding things and ways to connect. So if you've got adolescents, you might be jumping on Instagram, or you might be connecting with them. That you've got to find. You've got to find. Where are you? Where? You've got to find ways to connect with them at the pace that they're kind of going. But no, I don't think there's a prescription about what is damaging if you don't, if you're not present. It's the being present. It's the you're not an absent dad. You're living life, and they don't know anything else. It's this sense of perfect family, right?
Yeah.
They know what they know.
Yeah.
They know what they know.
I really feel for those, those guys and those families that, they work 2 and 1, they work away, or they work 3 and 1, or they work in the military, or various sort of different things. And I think that's what our generation is trying to resolve in some respects, is more, obviously more quality time, but more time overall, and more frequency as well. Like you said before, like dads who they get every second weekend with their kids. It's like, well, how much of that time, like obviously you can make 2 to 3 days really high quality, but there's another 12 days or 13 days where you don't have no contact. Or
well, no, that's not true. This is what I say to them. I say,
well,
what are you doing? What are you doing to connect with them on the days that you're not there?
Makes sense.
So I don't know, like even your girls,
like we FaceTime and stuff like that.
Exactly, but I don't know, if you put a note on their pillow, good night, I love you, you're still there, and you're present, and you're thinking about them, and they're that stuff's really important. But no, I don't. I think it's an impossible situation for us to feel that guilt, because we have to live life, right?
You're saying I need to do some planning and some forward thinking around this stuff.
Aren't you good at that? Like, just put this together, mate. You can do that with your kids.
Yeah. You're satisfying us.
Never assume that.
Come first.
I was going to say, when you're just mentioning Instagram and all that kind of stuff, that opens up another whole realm of, like, most of us seem to have the younger kids. But when they reach that age, that's a whole other topic. Gosh, I've got a whole other night on shut down social media and how to handle it.
By the time my kids get there, AI will be.
I'll have a new father. You'll tell me,
Someone else can
There'll be that 365 app, but I'll be there as a hologram, following them around their parties.
Yeah, that's not quality though, is it?
I know, but I just keep on top of them. I just wanted to, like you mentioned about, I just thought just through your time with working with families,
Yeah.
whether there was any like, I guess, common themes with what the kids are telling you and what they're saying, just with life and with the world and stuff that which we might not be privy to.
Yeah.
And then my other two questions were recurring themes with what the best parents you see are doing, and
Best parents.
yeah,
Are you ranking us? Are you ranking us?
Recurring themes for kids, it's
Yeah.
time with
just craving
parents.
time.
They're craving opportunities.
Yeah.
And they don't like it.
Is that
They don't like it when their parents argue. They feel really unsettled and they don't know what to do. And they don't like it when they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So if there's something happening within the family or there's a change and it's not communicated to them, they think the worst.
We feel the same too, though,
Yeah.
when that stuff happens.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But people think they're protecting kids, but actually kids need information to feel secure and settled.
Our parents never told us anything that's going on, ever.
Exactly.
That would be, I'm
Yeah.
happy to tell the kids that we're broke and they're not getting any toys.
Yeah.
So they get it all.
So time, more for
So,
time.
so
arguing.
time. So
read your kitchen
less
cabinet.
company.
Don't argue about it.
Yeah, that's great, Sam. Love it.
I'm
Uh,
the perfect
It's more to add to mine, you know. More cabinets.
oh, they want information about
So
things.
not knowing, so arguing, more information.
Time spent with
time spent.
parents. Yeah.
Was there
Yeah.
one of those? I don't know, really more
Don't be a dick.
common themes. Common themes that kids are talking about or wanting in their parents.
I think those ones are the big ones. I think if you spend time with your kid, they don't want much. They're not asking for these, and they're actually the thing they want is they miss people, and people are not there, and you know they want to be included, and they want to be asked, and they want to feel understood. And they don't know why. I mean, I talk to kids where some parents, there was a kid a couple of weeks ago, and mum and dad split up, and mum moved out as a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. And so mum moved to Queensland and to be with a partner, I think, a different partner. But this kid doesn't know why mum did that. So, you know, I think they know more than you think they know. But giving them the right information is always helpful. So, yeah, they just want to be, it's just this constant feeling of being loved and wanted, and it's just the basics of life, really. There's stability. They want to know what's going to happen next. They want predictability, and sometimes that's hard if you can't give them predictability. If your family's in a little bit of a state of flux, that's okay. Just tell them there's going to be a lot of changes. That is predictability for them, rather than saying nothing and letting them figure out, because kids will always, but they'll always think that the worst is happening rather than, you know, they'll always go to the worst case scenario. Perfect parents, isn't it?
Oh, just like.
What are good parents doing?
Yeah, obviously not those three things.
Good parents are doing stuff like this. Good parents are actually not saying, actually, I know all there is to know. and I'll do it my way. And the strategies I use on my 5-year-old will be the same that I use on my 15-year-old.
You sounded like my sister right then.
Yeah.
That was scary.
Yeah. She does that. How's life for her? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not going great. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
but, you know,
Yeah. So it's about evolving and learning. Those parents adapt and they are flexible in their parenting. And they do what you do. They kind of go, ooh, if I look at that phase, I might need to be doing some improvements. And, you know, I'm going to start today. And, you know, I'm going to take it to the next phase. You know, when they're babies and they, you know, they're born and you've got the first 6 weeks and then everything changes and you've got to kind of adapt and then you just get that right. And then 12 weeks comes along and everything changes again. That's parenting. That prepares you for the stages around parenting. Always changing, always thinking about stuff, reading, looking up, seeking out information, reflecting on your own behaviour, kind of, you know, understanding your relationship.
Is there any particular courses, coaches, resources which you would recommend? Or, you know, I think, you know, we've spoken about with Luke, like, you know, your relationship with your partner and parenting are arguably the two biggest things that you're going to do in your life and important things, yet we don't get any coaching or support around it, which is mind-blowing really when you think about, oh well, maybe I should fucking get some help with that. Even if you feel like you're doing all right. Yeah, are there any good resources and stuff which you've identified over your time, which...
Oh, look, I think you can pretty much jump on. I mean, I've got a list of courses. I've got a, you know, I could, if you want a particular thing, you know, you can always ask me and I can get it for anybody, rather than them sort of trawling through. But if you type in what you want, you will get the information. And, you know, I think if you're not open to it, you're not typing it in, right? So I think the first step is that you are a bit thirsty for that wisdom and knowledge. So, I mean, there's heaps. I mean, I do a lot of coaching with parents, particularly with blended families, to help them sort of navigate the merging of families, or other parents who are just, it's mainly around adolescents or separated, you know, dads who are trying to reestablish relationships with kids who've been alienated kind of from them. I don't know that if you've got that desire to learn and understand, that you won't find what you need. There's something out there for everyone, and there's, you don't necessarily need, if you find a course about parenting, don't do that. If you find a course about parenting children from 5 to 10, or parenting adolescents, or, you know, I'm having conflict with my adolescent, I'd like, you know, do those things, not any sort of generalist kind of parenting stuff.
Yeah, like I think after probably about 12 weeks with Willow, we read a book, Save My Sleep, and fantastic book, and just Hugh gave us perspective of like the leaps that they go through all the way up until the sort of like 4 and 5, and just about giving you the confidence to, like, it might not work for everyone, but you know, we wanted to have a sort of reasonably good routine that we could rely on, that the kids would sleep all night and, you know, not sleep in our bed, and they would have the resilience to put themselves back to sleep and stuff like that. So that was really good for us. But yeah, I think like you said, like having someone, it's just like having the confidence to try something, and then having and then having the backing of at least someone who looks like they know what they're talking about or has tried it and done it before. Like, I almost think asking your friends is like the dumbest thing to do
Yeah.
because we're all just making a mess of it. And we
Plus-
don't really know because we're just like, oh, well, yeah. But you don't really see, like for me, this lady's worked with thousands of people. And obviously like the nanny stuff back in the day was, on those TV shows was, oh yeah, I've worked with thousands of kids as well. It's like, oh, okay, well, we don't necessarily know the repercussions of that. Yeah, I just think like, yeah, it's good to share in your circle of friends, but they're arguably the worst people to talk to.
Oh, and I was
It's
thinking.
good to share, obviously. And
I
get
was
stuff and
thinking
get
about
tips.
this before I got here today, and I wanted to I forgot to say it at the start, but I would agree with that in, many ways. I think if you've got trusted friends who are happy to be vulnerable with you about the things that are good and not good, that's a completely different conversation than the ones I started in the mothers group, where you take your new baby all dressed and it's fed and kind of you're talking about, how they're sleeping through the night. Bullshit. You're trying to actually,
Project yourself.
yeah, you're trying to demonstrate competence in a group that's how you.
Group of
that's how you
incompetent
met.
people. Yeah.
Totally. But because that's how you're being judged and
Yeah.
that's how you're being measured. That's how your worth is evolving by if your baby's sleeping or how, well they're dressed, or if you actually even got to mother's group. It's such a false economy.
You walk in looking like a mess with a kid crying.
Nobody walks in if you're looking like a mess.
No.
That's the thing.
Uh-huh.
So really unhelpful when the reality of the conversations are, this is really hard. And, sometimes I don't know what I'm doing. And is it okay if you share with me that you feel like that too? Because that's what I really need to know, that I'm not on my own.
So go to your friends for that, but not necessarily for we had a lactation consultant pretty early on, and like just someone that knows stuff that has context as well. It's like, oh, you try this position, try this. It's like, well, yeah, I'm looking at you. I'm an expert in this. Do this. Oh, works. Oh, shit.
But having kids and having close friends can sometimes be the most just divisive thing you'll ever do for friendships, because people will parent in different ways, and you look across the room and you go, I see you smacking that child and belching into them, and I'm not really comfortable with that. And I thought I knew you, and now I don't know you. And so I think that happens as well. It's a tough time.
I'm going through that at the moment, big time, with my closest friends, and how we spend a lot of time together, and just how different we are with parenting. And like my wife's a lot better at most things, but she has a way of letting that go, but I get like this rage on the inside me, and I'm like, like taking on how they're parenting their kids and stuff, and how it doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, if you're hanging out with them a lot and their kids are behaving a certain way because of the way you believe they're being parented, I mean, you're worried it's going to rub off on your kids too. And you think, oh, look at the way they're talking to their parents.
Well,
There's no way I'd work that.
Distance ourselves from some of our family because of that, because of the influence that we'll have on our kids.
Yeah.
So we'll go months without seeing them. Like, oh, we miss you, we miss you too, but yeah, sticking around. It's a full moon.
It's tough. That's what I mean, divisive. Like what
They don't see themselves. Like they can't reflect on
It's
why.
also a generational thing. Also generational. Nothing wrong with my kids. Look, you turned out okay.
But this is like almost same age.
Yeah.
Like we're like family, same age kids, both twins.
Yeah.
And it's just like their whole, like everyone sees it.
Yeah.
And the way the kids are, and they don't understand it.
Like, is it good to try and have that conversation? Like, obviously, you put your potential friendship at risk, but it's like, So, sort of, sorry,
That's your decision.
Yeah. but it's like, so like, is there, I don't know, for me, yeah, you might, I'm just gonna, do you think, like, rather than doing, you do a passive aggressive, send them Instagram reels of why smacking's not good. But I guess, is it just sort of like, oh, do you find smacking helpful? Like, is it just sort of
Conversation.
is it just trying to have an open conversation? And I guess the other thing is, like, with an open mind, that you don't have all the context of the situation. Because I think it's really easy to judge without context, and context is very, very important. Like,
It's really hard. Like, I remember a situation, like, we're quite close to our neighbours, did a lot of before school kind of care, transporting to school. They chose to smack kids, and didn't really care who that occurred in front of. One day it occurred in front of my children. And my children watched this and were distressed and said, I don't understand, why are they hurting her? And, you know, so it became a thing that we had to talk about, and we had to minimise and explain that parents choose different ways to parent. And, you know, I used to just say, you know, I think you're very lucky that you live in a household that chooses not to kind of do that. Other people choose different ways. I'm happy to say that about smacking, because I don't agree with it. It's you're telling, most often parents will, in my experience, smack their kids to demonstrate to them not to be violent towards other children, which is a contradiction. Don't hit.
Yeah.
Don't hit, Joey.
what about biting? Don't bite them back.
Don't bite them back. I'd say talk to any speech pathologist. It's actually a very important part of development, and it's actually related to communication, not
Henry chewed
their
his
ability
cloth.
to.
Like, chewed it. I couldn't give it back to my sister.
Yeah.
It was like splinters in the mouth, sort of stuff.
Resilient he is.
He's still not. Maybe that was him trying to communicate, because he still has dramas communicating now.
Yes.
Like at school, if he's not getting the attention, he'll be loud and in people's faces.
Yeah.
And they don't like playing with him because he has that reaction to not being heard, I guess. Same at home. If you don't hear him, we'll hear him.
Yeah.
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 And that's something hard that we're dealing with at the moment.
Yeah, that is, he's 6, is he? 9. Yeah, right. Yeah. So how are you kind of managing that?
Apart from telling him to be quiet,
Yeah.
just, you don't have to be so loud. Like when he's in your, like, even, I think it's become more of a habit as well now. Like even just in conversation, he can be loud. It's like, mate, calm it down. I don't know whether he's fighting for attention because his sister's so well articulated.
Yeah, okay. No issues with his hearing?
He had issues with his eyesight. Oh, not eyesight. Yeah. So he went to Irene.
Yeah.
And got glasses for in schools because he couldn't read black and white.
Yeah.
So he had to have purple paper, green paper, but he had purple lenses in his glasses. Which brought him on a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think he's wearing as much because he thinks he's cured now.
Yeah.
He had that drama at school early on. We got that in year 1.
So he's got some challenges that he's compensating for in terms of relating to people, that he has to, find alternative ways that maybe his sister doesn't.
She's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he'll really benefit from lots of one-on-one time. Yeah. Yeah. He stopped chewing things?
Yeah, he doesn't.
Soccer
Just
balls.
his steak, just like a steak now.
Try not to let it. We can't get him to eat properly either. But he's really sensory as well.
There's I just referred somebody to a great speech path who works with sensory kids in eating
Yep.
down at in Lambton. Yeah, it's called Let's Eat. And yeah, my friend's girl is 16 and refuses to try most different types of food, but they work with kids who are exactly as you
Yeah.
describe. Yeah, that might be a good place.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just another quick one. If you do have, like going back to the friend circle, and you've got people in your circle that, you still want to be, in a good relationship with, and there's the challenges coming out of different parenting and stuff like that. How could you potentially get people like that to be open to, like, to say, coming to something like this, or having a bit of dialogue around it? Like, is there anything that you
I'm thinking of
bridge that sort of gap? Or
yeah.
because I'm like, as a male, I'm like open to change and bettering myself, but I know that there's a lot of my mates that it's just not even close to being on their radar, and it's the older I get, the more challenging those relationships are becoming. So
I think that's it. I think it's like
you reckon?
no, I'm thinking of good friends of mine who we went through the same, was really difficult at times, actually. And they weren't so open. So we restructured the way that we spent time with them. So we did more dinners out, less kid stuff.
Yeah, very good idea.
Just maintain the relationship, but not the exposure.
Yeah, I feel like I keep landing in these like pressure cooker environments where you're away on holidays with them or whatever it may be, and you're just like, wow, this is like a lot.
You don't do holidays?
Yeah, God no.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that we did. That was too much, too close.
Yeah.
I mean, in your sphere of influence, I think the best way to influence people is to talk about the things you benefited from. You can't really say, I think you should pop into this junto. They have these great stuff, and we talk about parenting, and you know how you smack your kids? I think there are other ways. So maybe it'd be good if you can come along there. No, people will be instantly insulted by that. But you could just talk about being open, finding parenting really challenging, because anybody who smacks their kids finding parenting challenging, right? Parenting's really challenging. I want to make sure my kids have great outcomes in life. So I'm actually really open to hearing about alternative methods of discipline, and I'm getting a lot out of it. If anybody's interested, come along with me. Just plant the seed. But you're doing that in a way that's not accusing anybody, not targeting anybody, but you're also saying to people that you've got some clear ideas about doing things differently.
Yeah, because I definitely can be reactionary rather than thinking it through, and you don't want to get yourself into bother in those situations.
Well, it's also not your job to educate everyone. Really easy to kind of think, if things are working for you that you want to share, but actually parenting is such an individual. That's why there isn't a book that's going to apply to everybody. People would take a snippet out and apply it to themselves. But yeah, I think just you would really benefit from just kind of going, you know what, I'm going to swim in my lane. I'm going to be channeling all my energy and thought and strategy into my kids.
Yeah.
And what other people choose to do, I have no control over. And then suddenly, I might just slip away. Yeah.
You raise to like a really good point there. Like for me, it's like leadership. Like the stronger you lead, the more likely people are to follow. So if you continue to show up, if you continue to show up and show like this is how I'm going to do things, then people are always watching.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh man, what are your kids' names? Like, Isla, thanks. You know, Isla's going fucking mental. It's just Tom just like calmed down. It's like, or it just smacked her. Like, and then, but they start to ask,
Realize there's another way.
they just ask questions, and then the questions, then they might come to you. It's like, oh, how you? But I think, and then for me, the other part is like sharing of like, and that's what this place and similar to tonight is like. This come with me mentality is what is needed, I guess, more and more in society. And so it's like, hey guys, like, and it's like what we saw in the father and son program, right? Those guys there with their relationship with their son was 7, 8 out of 10. That's how they rated at the start. Yeah. But it doesn't mean there's not room for improvement. And so it's like, hey guys, like, I'm going this thing tonight. It's just sharing your journey, just sharing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I do a terrible job of it on my own socials, but I'm too busy on other ones. With all the Junto stuff, I tag everyone, and most of the time I forget to tag myself because I'm like, I'm already putting it out there, but I'm not. So yeah, like I said, lead by example and communicate your message and show them that you are seeking more.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. They're not going to come of their own accord, but there's a better chance of someone coming with you.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll pick you up. Like, is there interested in this? I'm going to go there at 6. I'll pick you up.
Too familiar, doesn't it? Sorry about that.
I'm not trying to lead you in anything.
Bring people in, is it?
Well, like, honestly, it's like you're not like I spoke to this group today. Like most people are not like, Joel, would you have walked through the door if you didn't bring her?
No, Youngie.
Jace wouldn't have come if his wife didn't bring him. You wouldn't have come if Simon didn't bring you. I think you came probably of your own accord. But the guys who walk through with their own accord are fucking unique. They're not the
Status quo.
they're not the status quo because we're not all looking. Not everyone's like looking to go and hang out on a Thursday night and learn some shit. Like or come to an ice bath on a Wednesday morning. Like not everyone's.
It's getting too early for me though. The alarm goes off at 4:40.
It's just not.
You do have all day.
It's just not on everyone's radar. Yeah. And so yeah, like I said, you got to lead. You got to lead, and that's. I said you're gonna like I sacrifice the time with my kids, and hopefully it's worthwhile for myself. I know it's worthwhile for myself to come to these things, and I think there's enough proof with Youngie and Jace and hopefully Joel and Simon and yourself that you know that there's a result from that just showing up sort of thing. And so yeah, that's kind of my take on kind of what you just spoke about was.
And I think that,
the ripple effect. Yeah.
the only thing we can control really is our response. That's really it. So yeah, try it. I'd be interested to see when you get in that situation again. And you'll be in it for the rest of your life. The rest of your parenting life. You'll look over and go, yeah, I wouldn't have done it that way. And if it's too much, you remove yourself from the situation. But you just develop other strategies and you just channel your energies into what you're doing.
Bettering your own.
Yeah. And then you're going to be role modeling.
I have a pet peeve, and we can talk while we leave, that I would like to get your opinion on. Is something I'm really trying to stop doing and stop Sam doing, is saying, what do you want? I want to eliminate the word want.
You like?
What would you like? Because I just hear like, for me, there's nothing worse than a kid saying, I want this. or I want that, or I want that.
Like assault.
Yeah, 100%. It's
Okay.
like, oh, what would you like? Oh, I would like that's sort of like I don't think too many parents would like their kids saying, I want this,
Yeah,
because it's very, I can't think of the word right now,
yeah, demanding.
demanding.
Yeah,
It's like, that's not how you ask for things. And I think we are like the worst role model for that, because we say, oh, hey, Tom, what do you want? It's
Yeah.
like, well, we always ask you, what do you want? So they're just repeating, like, oh, well, I want this. And so it's like,
is there another part to the question? What is it like? What do you want out of this red ice block and this blue one? Which one do you want? Is that it, or what is it? What do you want? Is this when he's saying to Willow? Is it express what you want?
well,
Should she be
I'll-
asking,
I'll-
can I please have?
What would you like? What's your preference? Versus
Rather
like
than demanding.
using the word want,
Yeah.
and sort of eliminating the it's demanding, but it's what's the word?
Expectation.
I deserve this, or sort of like it's the
Entitlement.
entitlement. It's the entitlement of life in general. I feel like it just starts with like, I want this. It's like, oh, what do you want? What do you? And that's just, you see it at the park, and it's like kids are just like, oh, I want this. I don't know if it's a thing. Thanks for listening to the Junto Men's podcast. Our mission is to share high quality information for regular blokes who either want to be better or who might be going through some tough stuff. We really hope you got some value out of listening today. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So if you did get some value out today, we'd love it if you left us a comment, we read them all, you shared it with a mate, or even gave us a 5-star review. We love getting that. If any of what we have spoken about today is interesting to you, and you'd like to know more about what we're about and what we do, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or on our website. We'll hopefully talk to you soon. Cheers.